The wind howled outside my ranch like it was trying to tear the place apart. Rain pounded the metal roof as lightning cracked through the sky. I thought I was ready for this storm, at least I thought I was. I tested the backup systems, double-checked the batteries, and secured every inch of the property. But then, without warning, everything went dark. Not just dark dead. No hum from the inverters, no flicker of backup lights, nothing. I grabbed my flashlight and rushed to the control room. That's when I saw it. The main disconnect switch had been pulled. Not by weather, but by hand. I stepped outside and spotted her through the rain. Lisa, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA. She was running from my property, drenched, holding bolt cutters. She had no idea who she was messing with. I don't just live off-grid. I built the grid. And now, it was payback time. After 2 decades auditing high-risk electrical systems, I wanted peace. I bought a quiet ranch on the edge of town, off-grid, self-sufficient, and stormproof. I built everything myself: solar arrays, battery backups, water purification, everything tested beyond regulation standards. I didn't need help from anyone, especially not the HOA. But the HOA didn't like that. They hated that I never came to meetings, that I refused inspections, that I didn't cooperate. Still, they couldn't touch me until Lisa showed up. She had just become the new HOA president and brought drama with her like a hurricane. She made threats, left warnings taped to my gate. I ignored her. But during the worst storm of the season, she made her move. She cut power to my ranch. What she didn't know was that by doing that, she triggered an audit, one that would expose everything. And I was the wrong man to challenge. The sky turned an angry shade of gray long before the first thunderclap. I stood on my porch, watching thick clouds swallow the last bit of sunlight. This wasn't just a rainstorm. This was a full-blown system. I moved fast, locking down equipment, securing livestock, checking the solar arrays. Everything was in place. The ranch was designed to take a hit like this. By the time the wind started ripping through the trees, I was inside, monitoring the storm from my control room. The screens showed strong but manageable wind speeds. My systems kicked in perfectly, solar batteries held strong, inverters were clean, voltage stable. Then, without warning, the entire board went dark. No flicker, no surge, just a dead screen. I reached for the manual override. Nothing. Even the emergency DC lights didn't respond. That wasn't possible. These systems were independent, isolated from the grid. Even in a full blackout, the backups should have kept me running for days. Something was wrong. I grabbed my flashlight and headed for the main power shed outside. Rain slammed against my jacket as I pushed through the mud. When I reached the shed, my heart dropped. The main disconnect lever was physically pulled down, not tripped, pulled. That's when I heard it: footsteps, sloppy, someone running through the rain. I flicked my light toward the side fence and caught a glimpse of a woman in a plastic poncho, soaked to the bone, clutching a pair of bolt cutters. It was Lisa. She looked back just once before disappearing into the trees. I stood there, stunned, in the middle of a storm. She trespassed on my land and cut my power. She had no idea what kind of danger she just caused. My systems were strong, yes, but tampering like this could have caused a fire or worse. This wasn't just sabotage. This was personal, and she had no idea who she had just picked a fight with. I wasted no time. I flipped the manual reset, bypassed the breaker lock, and powered up my backup relay. The lights inside flickered back to life. A small victory, but I wasn't satisfied. I needed to know exactly what Lisa had done and why. Back in the control room, I pulled the surveillance footage. I'd installed motion-triggered cameras along the perimeter just in case something like this ever happened. Sure enough, there she was, clear as day. She climbed over the side gate, snuck through the east pasture, and went straight for the power shed. She wasn't guessing, she knew exactly where to go. The footage even caught her mumbling, "He thinks he's better than us. Let's see how he likes this." It made my blood boil. I checked the rest of the system for anomalies. That's when I noticed the secondary power relay had been tripped to one I rarely used, hidden behind the old maintenance barn. I ran outside, rain still pouring, and found its wires clipped, panel cover ripped halfway off. This wasn't some angry impulse. She came prepared. I patched the connection and isolated the circuit. The system stabilized, but barely. Any more interference, and the surge could have damaged thousands in equipment, not to mention the safety risks to me and my livestock. But that wasn't the worst part. While tracing the damage, I noticed unusual draw patterns on the grid. Someone had been siphoning power from my system. I cross-referenced it with old usage logs and saw spikes that lined up with HOA community events. Somehow, my power had been feeding a separate Connect Iona hidden one. I followed the buried line visually as far as I could, and it pointed straight toward the edge of the community maintenance zone controlled by guess who? Lisa didn't just cut my power. She was coming up with a scheme to steal it. I didn't react with anger. I responded with precision. Once the storm passed, I waited for daylight and quietly geared up not with weapons, but with tools of my old trade, a high-resolution voltage detector, a thermal scanner, a signal tracer, and a portable data logger. This wasn't revenge. This was an audit. I knew where the buried power line was headed toward the HOA's maintenance shed at the edge of the development. It was supposed to be used for landscaping equipment and basic storage. But what I found when I got there changed everything. Behind the shed was a junction box, freshly painted to match the building. Clever, but not clever enough. My detector pinged a live current. I opened the box, and there it was, a spliced line drawing power from my ranch, routed through a hidden cable feeding directly into the HOA's private backup generator, the one they claimed had been offline for months. Not only had Lisa cut my power, she'd been stealing it for weeks. I scanned the system. The wiring was sloppy, overloaded, and dangerously unstable. Any surge from my grid could have fried the HOA's entire power loop or worse, sparked a fire in the middle of the storm. And guess who would have taken the blame? I documented everything to misstamped photos, voltage readings, heat signatures, and grid irregularities. I even recorded a live trace of the stolen energy flow. Then I sent an encrypted file to my old contact at the State Electrical Commission. No names, just evidence for now. I wasn't done yet. Next, I prepared a report of code violations across the HOA's electrical setup. Lisa had bypassed 3 critical regulations, 2 of which could lead to criminal charges if proven malicious. Then I wrote up a separate package just for the board. In it, I included a full audit summary, photos of Lisa trespassing, cutting my power, the illegal power draw, and a recommendation. Either remove her from her position and correct the violations under my supervision or face a full-blown investigation from the state. By nightfall, the documents were delivered to every board member anonymously. The next HOA meeting would be one for the books. And this time, I would be there. The next HOA board meeting was packed. Word had gotten around someone had exposed serious violations, and though no one knew who sent the report, Lisa looked rattled. Her usual smug smile was missing. She clutched her folder tight and kept glancing over her shoulder. That's when I walked in. Every head turned. Some were surprised, others nervous. Lisa went pale. I wasn't invited, I said calmly, but since this affects my property, I thought I'd join. I didn't need to say much. I opened my laptop and played the surveillance footage, her trespassing, cutting my power, mumbling her little speech. Then I showed photos of the illegal junction box, the splice, the generator feed. She stuttered. That's not what it looks like. I pulled out the wiring permit registry and explained why the generator installed on HOA property isn't registered, why it's drawing from my grid, and why she lied about it. Silence. One board member, a guy named Greg, turned to her. You told us Jason agreed to donate part of his field for event parking? Lisa stood up, her voice shrill. He did. I have the paperwork. Then why is this signature dated 3 years after the man who supposedly signed it passed away? I asked coldly. No one said a word. Finally, I reached into my folder and pulled out my final card. This is a cease and desist letter from my lawyer. If one more truck, drone, or clipboard steps onto my land, I'll file for criminal trespass and civil damages. And since some of you helped submit these forged documents, well, you might want to lawyer up too. Lisa looked like she'd swallowed a cactus. Greg turned to her again. Is any of this true? She didn't answer. I grabbed my flash drive, nodded at the room, and walked out without another word. I made my point, but I knew Lisa wasn't going to let it go that easily. Sure enough, the next morning, I woke up to find a shiny laminated violation notice zip-tied to my gate. Unauthorized use of agricultural equipment. Fine, $1,000. I laughed out loud. Lisa had printed her own fake citation, complete with an HOA seal she probably made in Canva. But this time, she made a big mistake because I'd installed security camera Cheyenne ones after the fence incident. And one of those cameras caught her red-handed at 3:12 a.m., walking up in her bathrobe and rubber slippers, struggling to zip-tie the fake citation to my gate while muttering to herself like a cartoon villain. I uploaded the footage to my private YouTube channel and titled it, HOA President Tries to Find Me for My Own Tractor. Watch what happens. Within 24 hours, it had 89,000 views. By 48 hours, 200,000. I didn't even know people in my town cared that much about HOA drama. But it turns out, they loved it. Lisa's face was all over Reddit, Facebook, and even a few local blogs. One called her the slip-on slipper enforcer. The comments were brutal. But then things got scary. That same week, one of my vet buddies, Tommy, called me and said he saw something weird while passing through Meadow Creek. A few of Lisa's loyalists had gathered near the edge of my ranch, marking the ground with flags. I drove out to the back pasture and, sure enough, saw 3 neon orange construction flags stuck into the soil. They weren't just flags, they were utility markers. Lisa was planning something big, possibly a dig, maybe even laying pipes or trying to install something that would force a zoning change. This wasn't about parking anymore. She wanted to physically alter the landline. I yanked out the flags and tossed them in a bucket. Then I called my attorney. "I want a restraining order," I said. And that's when he told me something I didn't expect. "Funny you say that," he replied, "because someone just filed an emergency petition to seize part of your land under a community safety clause." My heart dropped. "You're kidding." "Nope. They're claiming your ranch is a fire risk due to unmanaged vegetation and that you refuse to comply with HOA safety guidelines." I nearly dropped the phone. That was it. Lisa had declared war. She was trying to use the county system to push a land grab. And if I didn't act fast, she might just win. I hung up and sat on the porch, staring out across my ranch. Max came over and nuzzled my hand. "All right, boy," I muttered. "If she wants to play dirty, she's about to find out who she's messing with." Because now, I wasn't just going to defend my land, he was going to expose every illegal thing the HOA had been hiding for years.